let's take a look on implementation of loops in Smalltalk. Look at that code. So first line, very simple. Create a variable and initialize it to 0. Now, second line, what's going on here? So we have a block here, okay, and what message do we send to it? While true. Okay, so we send message while true to the block, okay, and what do we pass as a parameter? Another block. What kind of block? 0 argument block. All right, and what do we do inside of this block? We show on the system transcript contents of our variable age converted to string, and we increment age every time we go through this execution. All right, and take a look. This block, what can we say about this block? Yeah, it is a 0 argument block, but what that block return? I would say Boolean value, because we have a condition inside, right? So we compare age to 5, and the result always will be true or false. And now look, it looks very natural. So we're saying, hey block, while you execute evaluate to true, we will execute this block. And of course, inside of this block, we have to increment our variable. Okay, let's try. All right, execute. Look, our block was executed 5 times, right? Once age become 5, so this condition 5 greater less than 5 evaluates to false, and once it evaluates to false, block stop executing. All right, this is a simple way to implement a loop in Smalltalk. Now, so we are sending this message while true column. Well, and I would like to find implementation of that method, find implementation of the method which respond to that message. Well, another way of doing it, so we do right click, implementers. Again, take a look. I select a message, and someone must implement it, right? Because it is working. Somewhere in our class hierarchy should be a method with exactly the same name. And I can ask system, show me implementers of this method. Take a look. So only one class, block class, implement method while true. So another way of seeing the code. Actually, in Smalltalk, we have so many ways of investigating the code, and it's actually extremely nice. Okay, block, class block, but we don't really know what class block. We never saw that before, but what we can do, right click, browse hierarchy. And now we can see that block, it is actually parent of well-known block context template class. Look, see, block context template right here, and superclass is block. Now, let's think what will happen when we send message while true column to this guy. And this guy, it is an instance of block context template. Let's see. Yes, it is. It is an instance of block context template class. Okay, great. So we send this message while true column to this guy. And we know that this guy doesn't have that method implemented. Why? Because, well, this search showed us that only one class in whole class hierarchy has this method implemented, a superclass of class block context template, class block. So what will happen then? So our object, our block, this guy, will be looking for a method while true column in its own class. And of course cannot find it because there is none. All right, and then it starts to search in its own superclass, which happened to be class block. and we'll find it and execute it. So we don't really see this invocation search, but that's how it always works. So we send the message and object jump its own class and start to search in its own class. If method is not found, it's step up to his superclass, search there. If none, one more, all the way to the root. And if method is not found in the root object, which is object, in the root class, so then it generates an error message. Okay, well, let's take a look on implementation of this method. So first of all, method while true column takes a block as a parameter. Look, an implementation of this method is very simple. Look, self value. And who is self? Self, it's simply a receiver of message. So in our case, receiver was this guy, a Boolean block, zero argument Boolean block which return Boolean. So in here, we send message value to this block, right? And that block will return true or false. And then while true, we execute what? We send message value to our parameter. And so we keep doing it until it's become false. And if you read the comment, it's explained exactly that. Evaluate the receiver, this guy, right? Our block, our first block. And block repeatedly until the receiver evaluates to false. Okay, and who's the receiver again? It's our Boolean block. All right. Well, now take a look at another piece of code. So first line is very simple, variable and initialization. And now, tricky part. What is this? What do you think about this? Well, it is a block, it is for sure, right? We have a square brackets around, so it is a block of code. Well, what kind of block? Zero argument blocks. Okay, great. Now, is it a Boolean block? Yes, it is, because all it does, it's always return true. So every time we send message value to it, we always get in true because nothing else inside of this block. Is it legal? Absolutely. Why not? Okay, so we have a Boolean block, zero argument Boolean block, and what message do we send to it? While true column. Absolutely. And what do we pass as a parameter? Another block. Okay, well, looks familiar. Now, what do we do inside of second block? We increase h variable. We add 1 to it, right? So we have 0 at the beginning, so we increment the counter. Now we compare h to 10. Simple comparison. And if true, if h greater than 10, then we escape from this block with h variable. So this is explicit escape from the block. And we show on the system transcript value of h. Well, looks tricky, but if we execute it, it's become way more easy to understand. Okay, let's do. Oh, redefinition. Well, to fix it, I'll go here and clear workspace variables. Okay. Now we will. And now I'll try again. Execute. Take a look. What do we have on the system transcript? 1, 2, all the way to 9. Okay, to 10, sorry. So again, let's see how it is working. So this block always return true. So we cannot really escape this because condition doesn't really change. This block constantly return true, always will be. So then we can explicitly escape from within the block with this. So that's what we do. We increase the counter, we compare our counter. If counter greater than, or well, if this condition return true, then we escape. By the way, what do you think? So when this will be evaluated to true, when our age variable contains 11, right? And what I want you to pay attention to, so once age become 11, so this become true, we escape from this block, and last line will not be executed. This is why we are not getting 11 in this, because we escape from this block before we print this on the system transcript. Take a look. I rearranged code inside of the second block. Now what? So first of all, we increment the counter, then we print it on the system transcript, and after that we do make comparison and check if condition is evaluated to true, so we escape from the block. Okay, so what do you think will be shown on the system transcript now? Well, let's see. I execute it, yeah, and we can see last character is 11, so all the way from 1 to 11, and then we escape. Yeah, blocks are nice, and programmers used to use them a lot, right? But in Smalltalk, we don't really use them much because we have much nicer structures to do pretty much the same job. Take a look. So first line is simple. Temporary variable, initialize it to 1. And now what? We're saying 5, which is a small integer, times repeat column. So we send message times repeat column. And what do we pass as a parameter? 0 argument block. So we're saying transcript show, we want to show the counter converted to string, then hello, and we go to the next line and we increment the counter. So look, block do a really great job here. So it's become so natural. So we saying we want to repeat 5 times this piece of code. Why don't we try it? Look, so we have our counter and hello. Again, just one statement, right? 5 times repeat. Repeat what? Do this block. And what we do inside of the block, it's completely up to us. Really nice. And again, times repeat column. Well, who implemented? Let's see. A number class. Class number implements times repeat column. And what times repeat column takes as a parameter? A block. Yeah, that's exactly what we do here. So we pass block as a parameter, and that block will be executed 5 times. As you can see inside, it is implemented with the help of while true, but we don't really care about that. And it's much easier, much nicer, just send message times repeat to small integer and don't worry about internal implementation. Here's another example. Look, what do we do here? We're saying from 1 to 5, do what? Do block. Okay. Well, what kind of block is this? One argument block, right? See, we have one argument here. So, okay. And what is this argument? Well, basically, this argument will be holding our counter on each step of execution. So, since we said from 1 to 5, do this, why don't we execute it and see if we understand how does it work? Look, we get exactly the same result, but that structure much nicer. Well, if you need the counter, so you have counter right there, handy, right? So you don't have to worry about incrementing the counter. So, but what is really happening here? So we understand who is this guy, right? Small integer. And what do we send to it? So we send message to column, do column. Agree with me? To column, do column. 2 parameters. First parameter is 5, and second parameter, 1 argument block. Well, yeah, it's really nice. It works great. But what if I want to see an implementation of method to column, do column? Same. I select and browse implementers. Okay, how many implementations do we see here? Well, 2. Class integer implement to column, do column, and class number implements to column, do column. All right. Question: which implementation do you think will work in our case? Well, not an easy question. And to answer to this, we have to understand to whom we send message to column, do column to. Who is the receiver of this message? Who is this guy? Okay, so this guy is a small integer. Okay, great. Now, well, if we browse the hierarchy, so what do we see? So we have number class, integer, and small integer. So our guy is a small integer. So when we send message to column, do column to 5, so 5 jump in this class first because it's the own class, right? Now, do we have that method implemented here? No. Then our guy will jump one level higher here and search for method to column, do column in its superclass, in his parent class. And we have implementation of this method right here. So what I'm saying, so method which is implemented in integer class will be executed. Do you follow the logic? Well, it's maybe a little bit confusing at the beginning, but it's always consistent. And once you get the idea right, everything becomes very simple and straightforward. And what we need to understand how objects react when objects receive a message. So, and it's always the same picture. Always, always, always. Object looking for a method to respond to that message. Because message, it's like a command to do this. But in order to do this, some piece of code should be executed. So object jump in its own class and search for a method with exactly the same name. If there is none, go one level higher to superclass. Search there. If cannot find anything there, one level higher and all the way until it finds it or until it's well, end up in the object class. And if object class doesn't have it, it will generate an error message saying, well, I don't understand that message. And that makes perfect sense. So we're sending a message, object did all it can, everything what can be done to find it, and if can't find it, say, well, sorry, I don't understand that message. Okay. Now back to this picture. That's exactly what we see here, right? So integer class has this method implemented, to column, do column. Of course, we can see it from another browser, exactly the same method. Well, it doesn't really make any difference. Okay, let's take a look. To column, do column. All right, two parameters, right? First parameter should be an integer, and second parameter should be a block. So that's, well, very clear from the name of the arguments. Now, what does it say? Evaluate a block, evaluate a second parameter. For each element, an arithmetic progression from the receiver on integer incremented by 1. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what was happening here. So 1, 2, 5. So it was executed 5 times. And on each step of this execution, variable I contained a counter, a current counter. And that's really helped us to show this counter on the system transcript. We don't have to worry about this anymore. Compare previous execution. So we receiving exactly the same output on the system transcript, but here we wrote much more code, right? So we had initialization and then we increment this counter in our block. We have to really worry about this. I don't want to say times repeat is not good. No, times repeat is great, but times repeat you use when you don't need a counter. If you do need a counter and you have to have access to current counter, so to column, do column, much better choice. Take a look on good usage of times repeat. So we don't need a counter. All we want to do, show string hello on the system transcript number of times. Perfect. How much easier it can be. Look, we're saying 10 times repeat this block. What shall I do? Print string hello 10 times on the system transcript. Let's check. Yep. Hello, 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 hello. The 10 hellos on the system transcript. Great. Take a look. Do we understand this code now? From 1 to 10, do block. And what show on the system transcript this current counter. Let's try it. Here it is. Perfect. So what do you think is happening here? Well, who's the receiver first? Small integer 1. What message do we send? To column, by column, do column. Different message. So message which do take 3 parameters. Okay, 10 by 2 do block. What kind of block? 1 argument block. All right, well, if we read it, it kind of makes sense. We can guess what it's going to do. But why don't we try to execute it? 1, 3, 5, and so on. Okay, great. Now, but how it is working? So, like, we understand this is a small integer, and we send the message to column, by column, do column to it. Well, can we browse implementation of this method? Why don't we search for implementers? Take a look. Integer again, to, by, do. Okay, great. And once again, which method will be executed? Integer or numbers one? Well, same logic, right? Who is the receiver? Small integer. Oh, okay. So why don't we browse hierarchy? Okay, so our guy is this instance of this class. Okay, so but we don't have that method implemented in small integer. So our guy will be looking for method in its superclass, which is happen to be integer. So and now let's try to find it inside of this. Yeah, here it is. To, by, do. All right. So integer, step integer, and block, and implementation of this. Great. See, and we can see exactly the same method through another browser. Okay. Do you understand this? We send message to column, by column, do column to 10, right? But take a look. Our step is a negative number. Do you think this will work? Well, let's try. Look, 10, 9, yeah, works great. How about this one? Look, our step is not an integer. So what do you think? Well, let's see. Works just fine. See, as you can see, to column, by column, do column, the excellent facility which allow us to enumerate through the block as many times as we want with any step we want.